Welcome to the Master Dealmakers Secrets Podcast. And now, here's sales growth strategist, John Blake.
Welcome to Master Dealmakers Secrets. I'm John Blake. This is episode 103, and today we are going to be talking to Oscar Pelazon about the three most neglected areas in growing businesses that can cause blockages. So particularly pumped to have Oscar on the show. We'll get into that in a minute. If you have got lead flow in your business, people you've spoken to that haven't converted, people on your database that you're not sure whether they want to go ahead or not, and you want to convert more of those people, head over to johnblakeaudio.com and grab your free audio training where I show you the exact strategy that you can use to double sales with your existing leads. So this is the exact strategy that I start all of my clients off with to give them the fastest ROI possible when we work together. And once you get it happening in your business, it will give you consistent results, which is obviously what you want. You can even teach somebody else to do it so that you don't have to do it. It's very easy. At johnblakeaudio.com, you will also not only get the audio training, what you'll also get is a PDF guide that actually has the exact word for word email templates, exactly what to say when you call someone, exactly what to say when you email them, and exactly when to email and when to call over a 90-day period. So this is invaluable once you put it into use. It'll be a system that will work for you long term. It's all headed, waiting for you at johnblakeaudio.com. So grab that now, and I look forward to hearing your success story. Okay, so I've got Oscar Pelazon. Oscar is a mate. We surf together. We both work with clients in their businesses. Really pumped to have him on the show today. We've been talking about doing this for a while. We're going to be talking about the three most neglected areas in growing businesses that cause blockages and what to do about it. Before I do that, I'll just give you a bit of a heads up on Oscar. He is formerly a partner of a successful boutique accounting firm. He understands the requirements of selling a professional service, the need to develop referral relationships that generate new business. He now applies his 20 years plus experience helping businesses grow and assisting owners and staff to balance the need to perform with managing energy required to sustain it. So as a trained mindfulness instructor, Oscar shares a unique skill set with his fellow Acuity colleagues in being able to assist clients, help them cope with stresses of business, and move their business successfully into the 21st century. So, mate, welcome. Stoked that you could make it, and looking forward to our discussion today.
Awesome. Thanks, John. Great to be here. Has been a bit of backwards and forwards discussion around appearing on your podcast, and super stoked to be here and sharing my thoughts around that topic with you today, mate.
Yeah, awesome. So mate, you work with a number of businesses. You know, I'm probably a little bit more focused on the sales side. You're really, because of your accounting background, you've got the numbers side nailed, but you've become very immersed in people's businesses around, I guess, marrying up that capacity side and the numbers side with the people side. And so, in terms of the three most neglected areas that you see, the common denominators, the pattern that appears when you're talking to clients, what are those three things to start off with?
Yeah, so to summarise quickly, and then maybe we'd just jump into those at each one separately, but most probably the biggest single most issue that people have in their business, especially when it's growing, is putting on extra capacity or managing capacity. They're either too slow to put on extra capacity to deal with the growth of their business, which creates a whole load of issues in itself. And for some businesses, depending on what's going on, they also struggle in terms of reducing capacity when things are perhaps not going as well as they like, and that's particularly because they don't like having those difficult conversations with people. So that's the first bit. They struggle with increasing and reducing capacity as required.
Yep.
The second thing is around culture. They lack real clarity around what sort of culture they want to build. And typically when we go in, they talk about being a family. And as we all know, most families are dysfunctional. And so when I hear that, we know that there's a whole load of dysfunction going on in the business. But they lack real clarity around how they want people to behave in their business. And as a result, people bring their own baggage and their own past experiences to the table, and that sort of dilutes what the owner's wanting and causes what we would call a problem in terms of that person's fit in the business. And the third thing is they lack a clear structure within their business that will scale with their business as it grows. And when we talk structure, I'm not talking in the legal sense of companies or trusts or partnerships. That's a conversation they need to have with their accountants and their lawyers. But more, how am I going to organise my people in the best and most efficient way to be able to deliver, firstly, on the promises that I make to my customers in terms of what I'm going to deliver for them, and two, so I can ultimately have everyone working together to help me, the business owner, achieve my goals and outcomes. And they're the three biggest issues. And ultimately that last bit comes down to, clear roles and responsibilities and accountability and communication. And there's a little bit more that we can talk about around that once we delve into it.
Yeah, it's interesting. All I've obviously seen all three. The one that really jumps out at me that I've had more experience than the other two would be the culture thing. So years ago, when I first started, 17 years ago in this business, and I would get contacted by a client, I was, okay, I'm just going to go in and train their salespeople. And in a lot of cases, that was fine. I'd go in and do the training, and they'd start to get better results, and they'd increase their conversion rates, and it was all fantastic. And there was a couple of situations where it just didn't work. And I'm like, well, hang on, this is the same process, the same strategy, the same framework, and I'm getting great results in other places. Why isn't it working here? And what I realized is that in some organizations you have to get this culture thing right first, because it's so dysfunctional. And so in some cases it's actually the guy that owns the business that's the biggest problem. And in those situations,
that's often the case in a lot of parts of the business. It's the business owner needs to change, not the business. But
yeah. Exactly. It's actually not the team. The team are actually willing participants, but if the business owner is the biggest culprit, then often aligning the culture just won't work. I mean, if you've got a business owner who's up for it, who's open, who's coachable, that's beautiful. But if you've got a business owner that you want to do this culture stuff, I don't need to be there. It's like, yeah, you actually do.
Yes.
But if they continue to opt out, that's like a really big red flag. And they are in many cases just really just absolutely pouring money down the toilet. It's just not going to get them anywhere. And who was it that I was speaking to? A mate of mine who is involved in a property development company, and they were doing like it was one of those like sort of recent buzzwords, lean lean management, or lean, whatever it was, lean whatever. There's a whole bunch of books on the lean startup or whatever, and he just said it's not going to make any difference because the owner of the business is so disengaged, and she's the biggest culprit. So we'll do all this training. They'll spend 50, 100 grand on it, and it'll absolutely change nothing.
Yep.
So this alignment piece is just massive, and so we go through and we create what we call the team code of conduct, which speaks to a lot of what you were saying is this making sure that there's core behaviors that underpin great performance, and also we start with eliminating the unacceptable behaviours. Because if everyone's clear on what the unacceptable behaviours are, and we can flip them to their positive equivalent, then now we've got something that we can actually manage. Because it's like, okay, well, my managers need to get better at managing. It's like, well, what are they managing? Are they managing numbers? No. They're, in most cases, they're just trying to create an environment where people aren't going to, poke each other's eyes out. And it starts with creating agreement on behaviour. So the culture one, I couldn't agree more, is just massive.
And the culture one, John's, there's a saying that I've heard around the place, and I use it. I didn't come up with it. I've heard a number of people use it, but you hire for attitude and not aptitude. So it's very hard to change people's attitudes, right? We say that culture in an organisation is built around the core values of the business, and in a small business and a privately held business, that's to be determined by the business owners. They need to be clear around what the core values of the business are, and it needs to be authentic to them, not just come up with whatever buzzword they want. And they then need to clearly define what that means, because depending on our upbringing, different words mean different things. They need to define what it means for them in their business, and then why is it important to them in their business, so that we provide some context around what's been chosen. And then, that's something that the business owners develop, not the staff. This is the business owner's business. They are going to be here long term. Staff come and go. And they need to drive that and be comfortable and aligned with that, first themselves, and if there's multiple, between themselves. And then we bring the staff in to determine those behaviours. So we call them supporting and non-supporting behaviours for each of those values. And we limit the values to typically 3. Every now and then some businesses are desperate to include a 4th, but our attitude is, if you can't remember it, you're not going to behave around it. So number one, and most people can't remember more than 3 of any particular category of thing, right? And then you need to drive that. You create a culture document or a manifesto, or however you want to term it, that in and of itself will do nothing. You need to drive those cultural values through your human resource and performance management systems. And, the reality is most of the problems that we have with people are not because they're technically not proficient, but it's because they misbehave in our business. As an example, if someone has a procedure to follow and they know what the procedure is, they understand it and they know how to use it, and they make a choice not to, that is a behavioural and attitudinal issue, not a skill issue, right? So we get our clients to get really clear on that and drive it through. Some of our clients will, at every meeting, put their values, their core values, up on the whiteboard, because that frames up how they expect people to behave within that meeting. And it just is constant reinforcement of that, and it builds alignment. And as you said, you can't have the business owners misbehaving. It's the whole premise around it is that the leaders need to behave around those values as well. It's not all right to say, hey, team, you need to behave this way, but it's okay for me not to, because very simply, people will very quickly throw that back in your face when you pull them up. It's not okay. Speed of the leader is speed of the team.
Yeah, so true. You can't have one set of rules for one person, a different set of rules for everyone else.
No. And it's often, John, what we see is culture when you're a small business where everyone sits in the same small office and the leader's constantly in contact with, and the business owner's constantly in contact with each of the staff members, it is less important that it's overt, because people very quickly pick up on what's acceptable, what's not, and the business owner very quickly keeps people in check. But as soon as you start growing beyond one common office and you've got people in a workshop or out the back of the office, and the owner's got their own, owner's office with a closed door, you start to disconnect from your people. And what happens is they will bring their own baggage and their own behaviours to the table based on what they believe is okay and what's not. And that's typically based on past experiences, right? So,
Absolutely.
and their belief systems. So it is hugely important that those cultural values are clear, but they're clear prior to the recruitment. They're included in the recruitment process.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They have to be part of the induction process. That person needs to find out about that expectation on their first day or in the first week. You know,
We think it should be part
minimum.
of when you're interviewing people to make it clear that this is the culture and what's expected of people, and they can then make their decisions whether they align or not. And then, as you said, it's included as in the induction and the training program, so that it's constantly, the expectation is very, very clear. And when we make expectations clear, it's very hard for people to dodge out and say, oh, I didn't know that you want that, or that's what you expected of me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Cool. So the and then obviously the roles and responsibilities, you know, shoot out of that because you've got that solid foundation. You know, the managing of capacity. You know, I work with a couple of different clients at the moment, and you know, having that flexibility to be able to throttle up or down as needed, and having that, you know, that capacity so that they don't get to a point where the whole thing starts to wobble and the wheels, you know, start looking like they're going to fall off.
Yeah.
Sometimes they do fall off.
Oh, yeah. Best laid plans are mice and men, but that capacity thing's important. And people often struggle with the capacity piece because they're not clear of, and they don't have a good line of sight of the pipelines of new work coming in. You know, that work that you do with clients makes it, when they've got great pipelines that are consistently feeding the right type of clients that are buying the right product at the right price, it makes it much easier to plan for capacity expansion. Often we find that business owners are fearful of adding capacity because they've done it in the past and it's turned out poorly because they were busy, they put the capacity on, they kept being busy and they forgot about their pipelines, and then you get the classic, you know, roller coaster ride, and then all of a sudden it takes a long time to turn that tap back on for some industries and for some businesses because there's a lead time, and then they have to get rid of someone who they put on, and that's not a very enjoyable conversation.
That's not pretty at all.
No, and then so what's happened is they next time it happens, they're very fearful of putting the capacity in place in advance of the requirement, so they've got enough time to induct them and train them and getting up to speed. So it's really important that piggybacks into the back of what you do with your clients, because not only does it help them grow, but it helps them grow in a sustainable way, in a way that makes it much easier to plan for the expansion of capacity. Or on the flip side, you know, as businesses do, they go through ups and downs. You can very clearly see that we're going to have capacity issues in terms of excess capacity. What we can plan for that as well. So,
and you can have contractors.
Yes.
You know, one of the clients I'm working with at the moment has got a you know, whole bunch of apprentice guys that they can sort of throttle them up and down, you know, as needed. So, you know, there's a few little levers that you can pull, you know, to manage that capacity
Definitely
issue without creating a, you know, like a whole raft of new full-time employees or jacking your overhead up long term unnecessarily. Yeah.
You can almost do a hybrid where you go, well, we've got a set amount of capacity that we know we need, and we can have that in-house, and then you know, as you say, you bring contractors in to deal with those excess bumps in demand, and you can manage those on and off as you need to. Yeah,
absolutely.
And we're lucky nowadays. It's become very de rigueur, so to speak, that you use contractors in a lot of situations where that perhaps wasn't the case in the past.
Yeah, true.
Yep.
So, mate, what are three things? What are the three steps to ensure that a business can grow through, with minimum interference? I mean, we've touched on some of it already, but just to summarize the I guess the solution part of our conversation. What would you say are the three steps?
The first piece is get clear around your pipelines, and doing some work with you around that, and make sure that you've got really strong pipelines of work and map out, where where new client opportunities are going to fall. So you do some capacity planning around, how full your cup is. The second one is get your culture right, get your culture clear. Because as I said, it's hard to train for attitude. You can train anyone in most things from a skills perspective. So get clear around the type of person and the type of culture you're wanting to build, and make sure people align with that rather than making people fit into your box or you fit into their box. We've got to be consistent around that. Get clear around your values, get clear around what you mean by them, and be clear around setting expectations of what behaviours are acceptable and not acceptable. The biggest issue people have is they've got staff that misbehave, and it's typically not because they want to, but because they're not clear around what's expected of them. And the final piece is building a clear structure in your business where everyone is clear around who is responsible for what tasks, who is responsible for what areas. Get clear around building accountability around the tasks that we're asking our employees to do, and set some clear KPIs for it. And then finally, so that people don't operate in a silo, is make sure that we've got a really strong management meeting and communication structure so that we can disseminate information in the business quickly and clearly to the people that need to have that information so they can make decisions on our behalf, right?
Yeah.
As we grow, business owners can't do everything. And the biggest problem we see around that is they either hold on to everything because they believe they're the only ones that can do it, which is delusional at best, or they don't properly engage people around what they need to do, and they don't bring people together to make decisions together. So what I mean by that is often you'll make a decision in one part of the business and it actually doesn't operate in a silo. It actually has an impact on 3 or 4 other parts of the business. So building a really strong structure that people are clear around who's responsible for what. Once they're responsible and they know they're responsible, we can build accountability to make sure that things are getting done. Decisions are being made, they're being implemented, and they're being implemented in a timely fashion. And we're getting information flowing backwards and forwards through a strong communication structure, both at a monthly management meeting and in between those management meetings, so that information flows freely, both good and bad, so that we can make strategic decisions about the things that we need to do in our business. And that way we've engaged our staff. Our staff are doing the tasks that we need them to do. They're behaving how we need them to be behaving. And the business is driving in alignment towards where the business owner wants to go. And it typically means more profit and more enjoyment, right? Often people are not enjoying the business they are in because of problems with people.
Yeah, that tends to be where 95% of the drama comes from.
Yep.
So if you can, get that bit right, like you say, from the ground up, that can avoid a lot of drama, most definitely. Like I said, I do some of this stuff, but and I have had a couple of clients where I've gone through and done all of this.
Yeah.
One in particular that comes to mind where they hadn't had a family holiday for like 15 years, and they were all able, because it was a family business,
Yep.
They were all able to go to Bali for 2 weeks and leave the team to run the business. And it was the first time in 15 years that they'd been able to do that, because all this stuff was in place.
Yeah, it's sad that, because if you ask people, why did you go into business, they want to be in control.
Yeah.
I can do it better than my current boss can do it often, because they often go into business in their area of technical expertise. I can do it better than the business I'm working for, and I want to be in control of the hours and my holidays and all that sort of stuff. And very quickly they realise that illusion of control is a long way off. And it's sad that you're in business for 15 years and you're unable to go and enjoy, the fruits of your success.
Yeah.
Either because you can't or because of fear you can't.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Mate, this is super useful, and it is an area that I know that a lot of the people who are listening are going to get a stack of value out of. So, mate, thanks so much for shining some light on what it's a relatively straightforward process, but so many people don't get it right. So, I appreciate you creating a bit of clarity and laying that out for us. But if crew would like to find out more about you and what you do, what's the best way to do it, Oscar?
Well, I've got my Facebook page, Oscar Pelazon Acuity Group Coach.
Yep.
Or just Oscar Pelazon. If you look up and you spell my name right, Pellizzon. There won't be too many Oscar Pelazons that I can in Australia.
I think I've only met one so far.
Yeah. There's also our website, but any inquiries there, or just give me a call on the mobile, 0438 431 692, and happily take your call. And people would like to catch up and talk about those things we talked about, the capacity planning and the culture and the functional structure and roles and responsibilities. I'm happy to pop out as a favour to you and spend an hour and a half with them at no cost to sort of run through what the issues are and talk to them about what they need to do.
Awesome. Well, mate, I'm sure that would be super valuable. It's a really generous offer. I reckon we might have to get you back on and talk about some other things, because I know that there's all sorts of different facets of business that we can talk about.
Yeah.
So, mate, we'll have to get you on for round 2.
Sounds great, mate. Maybe we can talk when the border's over. We can talk about strategic planning in Bali.
Yes, exactly. That would be good. That would be good. I'm most deaf. I ran that one surf business retreat, and I know that you ran a couple of those Bali strategic planning workshops. So I can feel an event coming on.
I can too, mate. I'm very itchy to move, mate. I'm very itchy to move, and love to be able to get that up and going. But I suppose we've got to let this pandemic situation just play out and settle down. And once we're ready to go, we'll go and do something. Maybe we'll do something together, mate.
Yeah, sounds good.
Awesome. Thanks very much for having me on, John. I much appreciate it. And we'll chat soon, mate.
All good. Thanks, mate.
Thanks, buddy.
You've been listening to Master Dealmaker's Secrets with John Blake. Subscribe to get more in-depth strategies to maximize your sales process with new episodes every week. And double your inquiry to sale conversion with the lead flow you already have. Go to johnblakeaudio.com for his exclusive free no-fluff audio training and companion PDF guide.